much for joining me on Being Indispensable. My name's Liz Van Vliet. We're all dispensable. I know that better than anyone. I'm a breast cancer survivor. But that doesn't mean that we can't invest in ourselves to improve the skills and capabilities that are going to help us stand out and be perceived as indispensable. Being indispensable is also about the being side of the equation. Because if we're not looking after ourselves and our own well-being, then we have no hope of showing up as indispensable in the workplace. Well, hello, lovely listener. It's Liz, and I am back for episode 195 of the Assist with Impact podcast, and I'm super excited because that means that I've only got 5 more, 5 more, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. Yep, 5 more, got to get my maths right, before I hit that magic 200 episode stat. And based on what I've been doing, which is not just bringing out an episode every 2 weeks, but actually what I'm doing is, in case you hadn't noticed, if we were thinking it was every 2 weeks, that would have meant that an episode should have dropped last week. And in fact, I am actually doing this year 2 episodes a month is a better way of thinking about it. That is what is working in the Liz brain for 2024 and the Liz schedule for 2024, because I'm juggling lots of other work commitments for training, coaching and speaking. And at the same time, I'm very focused on this content plan, this idea that I had for the way I was going to deliver not just the podcast content, but all of my content in 2024. And just to give you a quick recap on that, it's all around, each month is a different focus area in terms of the insight, the impact and insight area of my linchpin model. So if you've been playing along, you will have noticed that January was all about self-insight, that self-insight, impact and insight zone. And February was all around your leader insights, helping you manage up more effectively, not just in terms of my podcast content, but also in terms of all the content that I put out, whether that's my email newsletter, my Admin Insider newsletter that's now on LinkedIn, the blog on the website, the Linchpin Assistant, or my Instagram and other LinkedIn content. It's all themed around each month one of these impact and insight areas. So we are now into March, and my focus for March is all around these things that I call your power skills. So they are what I describe as your supercharged soft skills. And this episode is around really what sort of, I would say, percolates through every single one of them. And it's all about your verbal communication skills, your ability to be an effective communicator. And today, what I actually want to share with you and actually get you to just reflect on is the 10 most common blocks to you becoming a brilliant communicator. So in my power skills, the first 2 power skills are mastering confident communication and navigating difficult conversations. Then we have 3 and 4, which is managing up skillfully and revealing your leadership. And so on and so on. If you don't know what my 10 power skills are, you will find them on the website. I will put a link in the show notes. But today, I'm going to share with you 10 of what are the most common blocks to you being able to be not just a confident communicator, but somebody who communicates effectively, who has conversations that actually are not just, healthy, but productive. So, what are the common blocks that we all struggle with? Let's start with number 1. It's this thing that my friend, she's not really a friend, but she's somebody that I follow, Georgia Murch, calls usations. So when she's talking about us having usations, not conversations, if you've done any of my training, you will have heard me talk about this concept. And what Georgia says is that a usation, a good conversation is like a tennis rally. It's back and forth. There is, plenty of time for everyone to get their shots in the most positive way, but the outcome of each point is not recorded. So it's, in that way, it's not like a tennis match. We're not judging the other person based on the fact that we were talked at or not, we didn't actually have a conversation. That would be the tennis equivalent of somebody just having, a whole game of aces. And that's not what we want. So that's what's called a usation. We've all been on the receiving end of those sorts of usations instead of a conversation where it's just somebody who just wants to be the one to hit all those aces and they're actually not interested in having a rally with you. Now, what I want you to think about is whether you're having usations in your interactions with people. Because when you're doing that, we're too busy with being focused on getting our own point of view heard or telling our own stories. And that is not confident, that's not confident communication, and that is not navigating a difficult conversation. That is having a usation. Now, let's move on to number 2. When we're a subpar communicator, we spend little time searching for the real truth. So when we're coming to any conversation, we don't want to come to it thinking that we are the font of all wisdom and the facts that we have in our head are the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Because you're going to come at it with, already biased towards the other person, and you're not coming at it with an open mind to be able to listen to the other person's perspective. You're really more likely to reach what is effectively just a flawed outcome as a result of having that conversation. So the way I want you to think about searching for the real truth is the idea is that it's a combination of what you know and what they know. That's what leads to a great conversation. And that's actually what deepens your relationships. Because a lack of facts, coming into it thinking you know everything about this situation, leads to flawed conclusion, which leads to poor decision making, which leads to flawed outcomes, and it leads to damaged relationships. Number 3, is the need to be right. So there's a great book by a lady called Susan Scott, which is called Fierce Conversations. And she talks about taking responsibility for the emotional wake that you create for others. So again, I'm a visual person, so I hope you can imagine the idea of the wake that's created by a jet ski or a boat in the water. So just like when it creates a wake beside and behind them itself, the same thing exists for how we make others feel. And this is where it doesn't matter what your intent is when you go into a conversation. You might have the most positive intent, but we don't get to decide how that intent is processed or, translated by the other person. It happens. So when your desire is to be right or to get your point across, and that's what dominates the agenda, then you are leaving a negative wake. And that creates an emotional wake that is going to impact trust and respect in all relationships, whether that's at work or at home. So I want you to think about the conversations that you're having, the interactions that you're having. If you're not prepared to be honest with yourself and get out of your own way, then how can you expect others to be honest with you? All of us know somebody that is fixated on being right and leaves that negative wake in their wake, if that makes sense. Number 4, in terms of the most common blocks to becoming a great, confident communicator, is failing to notice when you are damaging other people's sense of safety. Again, this is something that we may have experienced ourselves in terms of what other people are doing to us, but it's also something that we can do to other people. And I know I've been guilty of it. So, I want you to think about the fact that maintaining safety is the difference between an outcome and an outbreak. So when both parties feel safe enough to be honest with each other, then you're actually reaching the best outcomes. And you can either, maintain, restore, or rebuild your relationships with other people. But when we don't feel safe, our brain goes into that lizard part of its brain and our safety is challenged and we have a stress reaction. And I've described that as watching out for when people go into what's either silence or violence. And that's obviously not literal violence, but it's in terms of their reactions and their responses being on the attack, or they retreat into themselves. When that's happened, those people, those individuals are not in psychological safety. So you should take a pause on that conversation. Number 5, not highlighting the real issue. So most people dance around the issue. Only really confident communicators can go straight to the heart of the issue. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll sugarcoat what's going on, or we'll dance around it, hoping that the other person will, be the one to put it out on the table. Yeah, I know what this is all about, that type of thing. So if the purpose of having a conversation is to improve somebody else's performance, to reset expectations, to, improve your working relationship with somebody, and we fail to say what we mean, then we're going to fail to get the outcome that we're looking for. Because what's going to end up happening is that there's going to be confusion, there's going to be frustration, there might even be that person might go into silence or violence, but, nothing's going to be solved and nothing's going to be gained. So I have done episodes in the past helping you with frameworks around navigating difficult conversations. The situation behaviour impact framework, the I notice, I imagine, I feel framework. I will put a link in the show notes to those. But the bottom line is it's about being clear. What are we here to talk about? And not dancing around the issue. Number 6 is doing what can be referred to as letting the board of directors in your head do the thinking. So we all have that, again, that our own view of the world. We all have the stories that we're telling ourselves. And that is one way of thinking about that is that, this is based on, both nurture and nature. It's the way we've been raised, the environment that we've been raised in. It's about the way we've experienced the world. And that affects how we perceive people, information, situations. They're what's called our cognitive distortions, which is another word for our mental board of directors. And they change the lens of how we see things. But what if they're wrong? What if they're skewed? What if you're looking through some sort of, it's like looking at one of those crazy mirrors in a circus? Because these, cognitive distortions dramatically influence how we approach conversations, they take us away from being objective. And that's where my tip for you is to remember to zoom out. Get yourself 1 step back, 2 steps back, 3 steps back from the situation, the conversation, so that your board of directors are not ruling the roost. Number 7 is that we take others at face value. So this is sort of linked to this board of directors idea, because we've had prior experience, both from our upbringing in our environment as well as what we've experienced in life. We can make snap judgments, deciding whether people are right or wrong based on those perceptions that we hold. And we make judgments. And that gets in the way of you being able to be an effective communicator. So what I want you to do when we're talking about this particular one is remember to be open-minded. So just like we bring to the table our own board of directors, they're bringing theirs to the table as well. And this is where my hack for you is about noticing and observing. And when I'm coaching assistants, I talk about playing bingo. What have we heard from this person before? What have we seen from this person before that's telling us about how they respond when they're under pressure or they're under stress? And if we look for it, we're not going to be surprised by it. Number 8 is that we lead with opinions and feelings, not facts. And that again, it's tied to, this is when we're in a you station, it's all about what we perceive the other person is doing wrong. So what I want you to do is think about those frameworks that I've provided you with previously, and think about the fact that at the heart of that, that's what they're doing. They're helping you separate fact from opinions and feelings. There is a place for feelings, but it's not what you lead with. You lead with the facts. Number 9 is we use honesty as an excuse to attack someone. So those classic 4 words, I'm just being honest. That's not an excuse for, verbally assassinating someone. So this is all about taking ownership of how harmful our words can be. And number 10 is that we don't self-manage in the moment. So I've talked about observing when someone else is going into either silence or violence. But what I also want you to do is notice when you're doing that, when you're either shutting down or whether you're going on the attack. There's a very good reason why self-insight is at the heart. In my mind, it's the fundamental strength that I think we can all do with focusing on. And it plays into this idea of this power skills theme. Every single one of these power skills requires you to be somebody who has self-insight. Because if we're not self-managing and we're not recognizing our own reactions until it's too late, then we're damaging relationships. So this is an interesting episode because what I'm doing in this episode, I'm sure you'll have noticed, is I'm actually getting you to focus on yourself. The taking responsibility for the way you're showing up in conversations. Because we can notice and observe how other people are playing up, but having an awareness and an insight into these 10 blocks that one or other of which, maybe all of them, we might all be grappling with ourselves, is a great way of resetting your own mindset when it comes to these power skills of mastering confident communication and navigating difficult conversations. So, these are 10 of what I've found in the work that I do and the research that I do and the reading that I do are the common blocks that have been identified by experts in this area. And they're definitely 10 that I've seen in myself and in other people. But the good news is that you can learn the skills and have the self-awareness to move them aside and build those relationships that are going to help you be effective, help you be seen as a high-performing assistant and somebody that is constructive as opposed to destructive. So, I hope you're going to follow along this month as I continue to share some tips, some practical and tactical tips and strategies around mastering your power skills, your supercharged soft skills. I hope you've enjoyed another one of my solo episodes. If you haven't noticed, I'm continuing with the solo episodes at least until June, when I get through every element of my impact and insight zones, because I really want to make sure that I've got this sort of little collection of episodes, and this content for the first half of the year is all around the things that I think are most important. Don't worry, there will be more guests, there will be interviews, but right now I'm massively in wanting, the mode of wanting to really share the best tips and techniques that I've been sharing with assistants since I started this podcast in 2016. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see the show notes, head over to my website. It would be great if you haven't already done so. If you enjoyed the show, if you could kindly go to iTunes and leave a review. It helps other people find the show. Thanks for listening and have a great week.